Welcome to our Superstonk AMA. We have the creators of the film The Wall Street Conspiracy and The Wall Street Conspiracy 2, Down the Rabbit Hole. Thank you so much for joining us today. Could you talk a little bit about your backgrounds and tell us how you became involved in making these films about Wall Street corruption?
I would say Darren Saunders sums it up.
So how did you meet him?
Cold winter night, walking down the east side, writing a screenplay about Wall Street on my own, having worked at a hedge fund, my family's hedge fund, being an actor in New York, part-time job. And I went in to get a drink, and Darren was the bartender, and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm writing a movie about Wall Street." And the next day we met for chicken pot pie in the West Village at Tartine in New York City. And that was 2000. And Darren, it's all Darren.
Wow, so you knew him for a long time.
I knew Darren a real long time, and it was Blue Chip. It was a screenplay first with like Firogen and all the loosely based on the truth. And Darren and I were like plotting this out. And by 2006, someone said, "You guys have to do a documentary." And I had Brown Settle Films, my production company in New York. I mean, I was actively, producing, but it was like, Mark shows up and everyone shows up and Wes shows up and Patrick shows up. And remember Bud Burrell?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was like a whole world of people just landed on us in Manhattan in kind of 2007, I'd say. We opened the soundstage there and started interviewing and flying people in and flying people out. That's when I met you, Mark. I would not be here right now doing what I'm doing had I not met Darren Saunders.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say exactly the same thing. I mean, Darren was like this glue, maybe crazy glue or something, but
yeah, super crazy glue.
The catalyst that brought so many of us together. And for me, I grew up in an activist family. My dad did civil rights activism back in the 60s, and he was a playwright. I did a little bit of investing around 2000, and people who have been at it a long time will remember that we had not a crash of the scope of 2008, but we had a hell of a crash in 2000 as well. And I was doing really well at it. And in my former marriage, we were coming up on this anniversary. Can you just shut the computer off for a week and we'll go down to Mexico? And I'm like, sure, I can do that. I came back a week later, and that week was around March 15th in 2000. And if you look that up, that's when, for that week, the market dropped about 40 to 50%.
Oh, wow.
So I came back to a free fall of everything that I had. I ignored it for a while, started a website in early 2004, and I thought, I should write an article about it. And because I started hearing about naked short selling, and I wrote one article, and this brand new website, literally that article and about 5 other were on the very first day. And I got nearly 1 million hits, that article, over a very short period of time, and hundreds, if not thousands, of emails. And that article was called Financial Terrorism in America. And I thought that was the most hyperbolic title I could come up with. And now it seems quaint as we fast forward, So eventually all these people migrated to me because I wasn't an insider. So I wasn't doing stock speak, financial speak. I wasn't an economist, so I wasn't incredibly dry. I put my own flavoring into things, and that attracted a lot of regular people because they could understand what I was saying. And so here comes Darren, here comes Wes Christian, here comes even John Harmer, who was ex Attorney General and Lieutenant Governor under Ronald Reagan, and then later a lobbyist and worked in Washington. He contacted me later. And then, as Kristina said, here comes Darren. He's on my website day and night, for better or worse. Brilliant, but also erratic. Darren spent about a year telling me, "Hey, we're going to do a film. We're going to do a film. I'm going to bring you to New York." Like, sure you are, Darren. He did. And then, like Kristina said, here's all these people that the week that or a couple of days I was there only to interview for the film. And then the few weeks later when I got an email from the person who was directing the film at the time. And he said, I don't really know how to do this story. How would you do it? And I sent back a 1-paragraph reply. And it basically said something to the effect of, I would tell the story like a mystery unraveling through the eyes of the activists who have been involved with it and who discovered the crime, because you're already interviewing a lot of those people. And he's like, that's a really good idea. Next thing, Kristina's contacting me and going, we want you to come right on this for, a couple of weeks, maybe. Everything seemed, we were all very naive. Then I ended up in the middle of it. These now long-term connections with Kristina and all of these other people. So fast forward and here we are for round 2,
Nice. What surprised you the most while making the Wall Street Conspiracy?
Ooh.
I would say for me, I knew most of the story and I knew all of the characters and I knew behind the scenes. I had already been talking to John Harmer and I'd been talking to Patrick. But I would say in my mind, it was the pushback and the bashing that we got. Not like, I got a death threat or two. Yes, I did actually. But for the most part, they wanted to discredit us. They wanted to attack us. And the other thing I would say surprised me the most is that, and it all throughout all of my involvement in this kind of crusade, was the street level people like Darren, like myself, regular people, and then all the way up to the Robert Blakeys and the Patrick Byrnes and the John Harmers, that there was, and the Robert Shapiro and these really people that I didn't expect to ever be in a room with talking to them. Like, why would they care to talk to me? So these very legitimate, very polished and well-educated people on the topic became involved. And I think to me that validated what we were saying. Then all of a sudden, when a nationally respected economist and then somebody like Blakey and then somebody like John Harmer says, yeah, you guys are right. Good, good work, guys. You're right. And that was a shocker to me. And they were all willing to jump in and tell their stories. So
Quinn's article in Forbes in 2000 was what gave me the validation for Darren and I just writing Blue Check before it was a documentary. That was all we had. And then there was Bloomberg, Gary Matsumoto's piece.
Yep.
That helped.
Article. Yep.
New York.
Hill and Avery. So a lot of journalists picked it up.
Yeah, all journalists were doing their work and they need to be credited for this work. I mean, they did the work. Mm-hmm. So it was like kind of proving things to studios in LA or proving it to a producer you're talking to. And in the end, if you want the answer to your question from me, what was the biggest surprise? My biggest surprise was it all flipped while we were filming. Yes. That was far out. When you're telling the story that we were thinking, I don't know, Darren's story, your story, everyone's story. I'm in documentary land here. I'm super creative, not really knowing what the whole story is. And then the whole thing happens.
Right.
Like in our face, like literally. And we're at, my office at Tribeca Film Center. And then it was all over the news day, right? Lehman and the whole thing. And that was 2008.
Yep.
So
yeah.
The crash basically of the stock market is what changed the film?
Well, we were filming. Yeah. And then it happened. So we had to shut down, rewrite, close shop. We had a huge crew. And remember, Mark? And when you moved to New York.
All the signs were there, and I wasn't alone in that. We all kind of saw it coming. But then I remember thinking, well, hell, this is now an autopsy and a forensic study instead of a warning, and a premonition of this is going to happen. Now I had to go, I've got to completely start over and write it as a forensic study of what just happened and why.
That was hard with Darren's cancer and all the stories. And it was like what Obama, Bush, Dodd-Frank, all these things were happening in real time. It was amazing that Mark came in to rewrite the entire film. We had to completely regroup everything. It was like a stop, like a global hard stop, not just a stop, everything Mark's we've been kind of in collectively, all of us, happens. Then what do you do? And you're in a studio in New York City and you're trying to figure this out. That's not easy. And I think part of what we're here to do is tell the story. But when you're doing something in film, we're putting it in a format that's for the people once again. And we want to do it, I hope, as well as we did it before. I'm hoping it's not as complicated, right, Mark? Pray.
I mean, I had done so much of the groundwork myself, and by that it wasn't just me. It was this weird. That's where the term "the dirty dozen" came out of, because we were very unlikely. We were not. When you throw a Darren in with the Susanne Trimbath and a Robert Shapiro and a Patrick Byrne and a Wes Christian from Texas and me from Oklahoma, it was an odd group. And now here comes Kristina over here with Darren's dragon, and so it was a very unusual group. But we had all done our own homework, and then we all got together and we compared homework with each other, and we had this conversation on the internet, not to the level that you guys are having it today. There were not millions of us talking about this. There were sometimes a dozen of us if we were lucky, and that was it. But that's kind of one of the big differences, is there are so many people plugged in because of Reddit and because there are better, and even Twitter. None of that really existed to any degree back then.
No.
Little tiny chat rooms with a couple of hundred people in them, so we don't have as much homework to do. And it's unfortunate that when it hit again for me, I got to just go, it took me probably an hour to go, it's the same damn thing, and it hasn't changed. And
No,
the
it's
shock
not.
was they haven't fucking fixed anything.
Nothing.
Mhm.
And it's like, that's why we're here. We're just here to help out, right, Mark?
Yeah.
We don't, we're just diving in kind of the same way everyone else is, in a way. It's like, whoa. But this problem is so badass, big, and awful. This is some fierce stuff. And I applaud all of you out there. And I really admire everybody who's standing up. And I just have gratitude to be right here, right now on a Friday night. We're just giving you guys an opportunity to put your voices or interviews. Hopefully we're hoping to raise money and get stuff situated so, Mark can hit the road interviewing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where we are. We've spent a year of our time, Joni, Mark, and I wish Joni was with us, and she's not. I really do. I'm sorry she can't be, because she's so dynamically lovely and powerful and important. We, as the Rabbit Hole, we're just the people's voice to tell the story and bring in Dave Lauer, and We the Investors, and your great conversation with Gary Gensler. I mean, we just want to elevate what's going on. It's not for any other reason other than to achieve a goal. I think, Mark, we need to figure out, the Rabbit Hole, so far, content development wise, everything is coming at us. But
Yeah, all at once.
The solution, this is the biggest question that everyone has always had, because when we finished WSC, it was Occupy Wall Street, right? That was cool and amazing and powerful. But if anything comes out of this interview, your feedback after the questions was actually really perfect, because that's what Rabbit Hole needs right now, is the relative, what are we putting in this? What are we doing? I've never, ever thought this would all be happening the way it's happening. Do you think that we weren't supposed to know?
First of all, I will say this. We will not take so long on the other questions. But now I'm going to answer Kristina's question, because it's a good question.
But it's real.
I could not have sustained that level of involvement for the last decade. I keep telling everybody in activism that my favorite quote is from when I was in Ferguson, because now I've been doing a lot of human rights and social justice and criminal justice stuff. where on the first day of protest that I was there, a bunch of kids, I'm old enough that I can call people in their 20 kids, and they have all this energy in front of the Ferguson police station. They're ready to take down the system that night. This woman gets on. She's clearly been in civil rights since probably the 60s, older even than I am, and she took the megaphone and she said, I need everyone to go home now and get some rest. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And that reads like a mantra in my head. And I want everybody involved in this now to remember that this is a marathon. We're not going to fix it in a week. The film's not going to cure it. One protest is not going to fix it. I have done hundreds of protests, organized hundreds of protests. Occasionally you fix an immediate problem, but this is a structural problem. This is buried deep into our system. No one thing is going to fix it. So everybody stay rested and know that it's going to go on for a while. So, okay, questions?
All right. Were there any compelling sound bites or ideas that had to be cut from the original film for the sake of time or overall narrative flow of the documentary?
I can name a couple. My favorite scene that didn't make the movie was there's a mention in there of Darren Saunders where he says, he lost everything. He talks about how down and out he went. But there's one story he told, and I won't tell the whole story because I'm still not sure that I don't want to use it as a backstory in the second film, where he talks about people that he owed money to coming to collect money from him. And he had borrowed this money to buy Virogen stock. He actually did a reenactment in it, and it was really good, and we didn't get to use it. That scene was just my favorite scene. It was just Darren being Darren and Darren being human. And his struggle, as I found out throughout the years, reflected the struggle of millions of people who have gone from, hey, I'm doing pretty well, to I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight. And I think that's why Darren resonates.
I'm just blown away that people care about what we did. But you look at what's going on now, Netflix is covering Madoff again, with a 4-part docuseries, and then Wahlberg is going to cover his production company is covering the guy. I can't remember his name. He's the Bahamas dude that just ripped off everybody recently.
Sam Bankman-Fried?
FTX.
From FTX? Yeah.
No, I just don't want to say it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just announced, Mark
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And that's fascinating that everyone wants to cover all these stories of people losing their asses. But where's the recovery story?
Yeah.
Where is the fix? Where is the no.
Since you made your first movie about naked short selling, what were your thoughts when you saw GME 140% short?
We talked about this and we Googled it and we tried to figure out what would we think, because when that happened, I was on a beach in Hilton Head with my dogs. That sounds glamorous. Not. Lockdown, my son calls me. He's like, Mom, why did you not buy GameStop? Because he loved GameStop as a little kid. So I had no clue what was going on. And I like to say that. I want people to realize that I had no freaking clue. I was just getting a couple phone calls here and there from Wes, Dave Wenger. Want to give kudos to Dave Wenger with Sharon Tell for all he's done. They're like, Kristina, what are you going to do? And I'm like, do about what? I don't know what you're talking about. So Mark, where were you when all that happened? Because
I mean, I was here, and I'm working on a long-term project about mass incarceration in Oklahoma and nationally. And it just popped up as a news thing. And I'm like, GameStop. First of all, I'm going to probably piss off some GameStop people. I'm like, GameStop's still around. I'm not a gamer. I'm old. I didn't do that. But my second thought was, wait, what? This is still going on. Mm-hmm. And so I had to do a deep dive. It was the same exact thing, more tentacles, more automated techniques of ripping people off, some new ingenious ways of how to steal our money based on technology. But same old thing. I was not surprised, but I was absolutely shocked that nothing had been done in a decade. That's the short answer to that. Absolutely shocked.
Yeah. Did anyone send you I don't know if you can talk about this, but did anyone send you a cease and desist letter for either film?
No, I raised my hand on that. So
No, we got threats. No. We got some threats, but nothing official. Just the usual threats. I feel like you guys probably get threats too now and then because you're not doing your job if you don't, So.
Yeah, basically. Well, and it's, the internet. So.
But nobody literally tried to stop it legally. No.
No, but nice. Things happen to you.
Oh yeah. Lots of things have happened. For a while, I was working in an office here, running kind of an entertainment company. Again, all these weird things spawned out of my writing on this website. And I come to the office one day, and my personal assistant, actually, she called me and she said, "Can you come in early today? I don't know what to do about this death threat on the answering machine."
Oh, God.
And I get there, I'm like, that's funny. And yeah, I had death threats and I got them by email. I had lots of quote unquote journalists who would bash me because they were trying to discredit what I was doing. I came home once in Oklahoma City, and this is the only time I would say I felt fear. It was while I was talking to John Harmer and we were trying to get it in front of Congress. And I woke up in the morning, someone had broken into my car, and I carried a file box around with me with all my files because I had no idea when somebody was going to call and I was going to have to be on the phone and explain, "Oh, let me look up that stock for you," or what the hell it was. And someone had broken into my car, taken all of my files and laid them across the inside of the car like a blanket, and then locked the car back. Didn't break anything, and I knew that was, this is a warning, and I did a radio show that day and I said, I don't know. I look for bombs underneath my car. My oldest daughter at the time was just learning to drive and she was driving my car. So for months, I would get up in the morning and if she was going to drive it, I jokingly said on my show at that time, I don't know whether I'm looking for a Roadrunner dynamite with a clock on the bottom of it or what the hell I'm looking for here. But I drove the car around the block before I let her drive it because I seriously didn't know if it was going to blow up. And so it got ugly. It got ugly. But legally above board, nah. It was very covert, seedy shit.
Nothing production wise, but we had good legal. We had the best. We had the money to support that, but nothing ever weird.
Yeah.
I'm told weird things might happen.
Yeah. I was too mouthy.
But not.
Yeah.
Nothing. I just did it by the books. I made the movie the best as I could.
Mm-hmm.
In my life, so this is number one, but we had really good legal, we had really good everything and great writers, and I don't know, do you think there's all that going on now, Mark?
Yes. Short answer, yes. Of course, we are screwing with, it's happening to me in Oklahoma City right now as I'm dealing with the billionaires who want to build a giant county jail and they make money off of bodies. They just do. This is the same damn thing. So here's the thing. When you screw with the richest people in the world's money schemes, they are not happy. And they will do whatever they can. And sometimes it's them, and sometimes it's their minions, and sometimes it's billionaires, and sometimes it's millionaires, and sometimes it's a guy on the street like the mob has on a street corner that they send out to strong arm you. They're going to do that. They just are. And again, to people listening, you all already know this. I I just know you've been through all of this. The people in your rooms even don't always have the best of intentions. And sometimes they're there specifically for the reason to create chaos and discord and to discredit all of you. So, yep, still goes on. As long as there's money, there will be greed.
Yeah. Yeah. For individuals who have been fighting Wall Street corruption for decades, what do you think makes the current environment different?
Global. It's just global, whole global. And here we go. I got the list. I have the list because we wrote the list when we talked earlier before the call. These are the countries that have watched the Wall Street conspiracy in the last quarter, because I had distribution for $2 just to track what was going on. It wasn't about making money. It was just about see who's watching it from all over the world. USA, Canada, UK, Germany, Sweden, Australia, Netherlands, Denmark, Uruguay, Spain, South Africa, Norway, Malaysia, Ireland, Costa Rica, and Brazil. We have global support.
Yes.
Not me. Not we, like not rabbit hole, but like the world. It's just a whole global thing. So we got to get on it. Like hip it up. Let's go. Let's get some shit done. I mean, who wants to sit around and like watch this go on? But every single person who I've had contact with, it's the same energy. So yeah, but that was a report I received this week from the film, and I was like, wow, when you see something like that, like you get sales coming in like little bits here and there, because we're not making any money on the movie and we don't care, but it's like, oh my gosh, I saw the country list. I think that the global community, this is my vibe on this. I'm not right, I'm not wrong, I'm just getting a vibe. I felt this years ago, Mark, as well, when we premiered in 2012. I just felt like there was this global connection. And so if we can get old countries to rise together right now, collaborate on this issue that is a global issue, I think we could get something done here.
I'm going to probably again go against the grain here. I would not be unhappy if we banned short selling, because if you can't do it properly and you can't fix the system, it can be fixed, but they're not fixing it. If we don't fix it where you don't have to just go, oh, I think I see a borrow over there in the horizon somewhere. So yeah, push it on through, and then I'll, jump through hoops and I'll shift it to another trade next week, or I'll send it through Berlin, or I'll do all these things to hide the fraud. Well, hell, if you can't hide the fraud in the system of short selling, why are we doing it? But several countries in Europe actually banned short selling. So they're ahead of us on this.
Are you familiar with our efforts to DRS? And do you see self-custodianship as one of the tools retail has to reclaim some agency in a fundamentally rigged system? Did you know we've direct registered over 50% of the float, removing shares from the DTC in their endless rehypothecation loop? And do you think Wall Street is tracking this?
Okay, that's a really complicated sounding question, but I do know a simple answer to it. And the answer is yes, it's absolutely a great tool. Back when we were covering this years ago, for me, 20 years ago, when I first started, we started talking about things like, okay, get it a paper stock certificate. Well, eventually, a lot of companies don't even issue those now. Oh, wait, put it in a cash account. And that's still a really good thing to do, because in theory, the broker is not now not borrowing your stock and selling it out from under you without you knowing it. But in theory is the part that makes what you guys are doing much more effective. And I would say keep doing that.
If you look at GameStop's 10Q, the financial report, the quarterly reports, you'll see where it says, 71.8 million shares are registered with our transfer agent. So that's just retail investors all putting our shares with the transfer agent.
Wow. If you're over 50% or at 50%, that's huge.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot. And it's another tool. I mean, understand that when you're asking us questions about, okay, is this a good thing to do? Oh, are protests a good thing to do? Is pulling your stock out of the DTC and out of the way from all of those are tools. My answer, and as an activist, I have always told people diversity of tactics wins every time. It's like a military action. You don't win just by bombing the hell out of somebody. You have to have all these different tactics, and they can all work together to create enough pressure on the system that we force them to fix it from the top. Everybody should organize better. It is a thing.
What do you mean, Cal?
You have to have conversations beyond the scope of your personal interest. So if you're into GameStop, you have to go, okay, GameStop is over here. It's one thing that we're fighting for on a personal level. And maybe you're building a prototype that could be implemented in 100 other companies or something. But regardless of it, you have to say, here's the micro level. Maybe it's GameStop. Here's the second level, which is how do we get the word out nationally? How do we promote it? How do we get people to understand the problem from a human emotional level? And then the third tier to me is always the macro. How the fuck do we fix it at the source? And my job is done in any activism that I do when it gets fixed at the source. I don't have to deal with it anymore. You fix the problem. So it's that, and those conversations have to happen. We lost Kristina. She'll probably come back in. We've been popping in and out. But the reality of it is, it's that. You all have to put aside some of the individual discussions about, what's in it for me, and you have to start saying the system is broken. How do we fix the system? Who do we talk to? How do we approach that person? And how do we have a united front? And if you got to go attack, and I mean by phone calls and emails, not physically, someone like Gensler, then do it. But do it concerted. Do it all together. You've got people in Congress, not many of them, quite frankly, that will support you because they're awesome people. They'll support you because it's politically expedient for them to support you. But I would say Bernie Sanders, if he had a good knowledge of all of this, he would jump right in on it. You can love Bernie or hate him, but he stands in the middle of the people pretty solidly all the time. I would say Elizabeth Warren.
I was just going to say Elizabeth Warren. Yeah, she's been awesome.
From here. She's from Oklahoma originally, and I don't agree with her on everything, but if you go back and listen to her very first conversations with the head of the SEC and all of the regulatory agencies after she became a congresswoman, and it's one of the most beautiful questionings I've ever seen, because she does that school marm thing, and she's like, and her question was simple: can you name one bank CEO of a bank or a brokerage firm or a Wall Street firm that you criminally charged with fraud after the 2008? And they would say, well, I mean, we got a huge fine from Goldman Sachs. And she said, no, that's not the question. Can you? And she did that about 5 times. And pretty soon they're all sitting there going, God damn it, can I drop this class and just go home? Because this is horrible, So I think Elizabeth Warren is another person who could champion this for people. The media is trickier because the media will pretend to be your friend, and then they'll turn on you when it becomes convenient.
Mm-hmm.
You Platinum have become the new media. You guys are the new media, and that's a good thing. I've seen shows where I'm stunned that I'll go, oh, that got uploaded 4 days ago, and Jesus, 50,000 people. It's insane that there's so many people who are interested in this. So yeah, to me, it comes down to that. You have to find the people who might bring change. And it has to be at the government level. So, of course, Gensler is somebody that has the chair of the Senate Banking Committee. Any groups. We used to hammer Senator Shelby from Alabama, all the time. I crashed his phone board one day. It was probably one of the most satisfying mornings of my life. Was he refused and shut down a hearing on naked short selling. And he was the one that made the final call. And we found out later through Harmer that all these other people put pressure on him, and he would not speak to me. I emailed him. He would never talk. He would never answer anything. And I finally put out his phone number, and I told everybody at that time who was watching me or listening to me, I want everyone to call him right now. And I woke up at 6:30 or 7 in the morning with my phone ringing, and it was his personal assistant and him saying, the senator would like you to call off your people because he can't get any work done and his phone system has crashed. And I said, is he fixing the problem? Is our hearing on? And she's like, I don't know about that. I'm like, tell him to call me back when the hearings are back on. He never did, obviously. But here's the point. A few hundred people can make an elected official's life miserable. And I am going to say, do it. Single out the ones that you think at the moment are the best target and make their lives miserable all at the same time. So focus, kind of laser focus your efforts a little bit more. That would be probably my best advice on the lifelong organizer part. Is you can't fix it all at once.
Right.
So pick somebody and go after them. Do it. It's fun. I mean, it's actually fun, and it gets results in the long run. So,
yeah. Do you believe a company like Citadel should be allowed to conduct business as a hedge fund and a market maker? Does this create inherent risk to the market?
Mark,
y'all know the answer to that already, right?
Well,
Yeah, it's bad. It's unfair. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, old enough that I'm actually an RFK, Martin Luther King. I'm a Democrat from that era. I will say, and I've been active in Oklahoma as a Democrat, but I will say that Bill Clinton is my worst enemy in the way that he handled the market. So repealing the Glass-Steagall Act.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awful.
Oh, yeah. And that opened the floodgates to things just like Citadel. It makes no sense. It also makes no sense in the broader scope that the DTC is owned by the brokers and
everything is, though. All the extras are,
including the politicians, most of them. But no, it makes no damn sense. None of that should be allowed. We absolutely should reinstate Glass-Steagall, and we should update it, but not dilute it.
Yep.
That's make it even stronger.
I agree 100% with that. Well, this next question is from a foreign investor, and they asked, I have lost so much trust in the U.S. financial securities market. Do regulatory bodies simply not see how badly perceived the U.S. market is from abroad? And how do you see regulators correcting bad players' behaviors?
My short answer to that is, of course, they see how bad it is. They are owned. They are owned. I mean, the American system, for all of our wonderful traits, our government is run on greed, and our political system is oiled with money. In Oklahoma, it's actually oiled with oil money, but here we are. So people overseas, it's interesting to find out that not every country is like America. We took European capitalism and put it into hyperdrive. We created the biggest capitalist system in the history of the planet, and then a few oligarchs. Like Bernie Sanders. I watched this great video of him, Bernie speeches for the last 30 years, and they're exactly the same. But the only thing that changes is 30 years ago he was saying, 10%, and I'm throwing these numbers off the top of my head, 10% of the population owns 50% of the wealth. And then a few years later, 1% of the population owns 10%. And now he's like, 3 people own half the wealth in America, or whatever that number is now. So the only thing changes is that fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer billionaires, and pretty soon trillionaires, own everything. So in answer to that person, yes, they see, no, they don't give a damn because their pockets are being lined by millionaires and billionaires. That's my humble opinion.
You know, the more we get into this, Mark, the more you realize we're not going to, you and I aren't going to make a huge, we're going to help. You know, we're helpers. We're like, why? Why does this have to happen? Why is there so much greed? Why are all these people that are just so freaking vicious about what? Money?
Yeah.
What is money?
People who have more money than they can ever spend in the next 20 lifetimes are the ones who are the greediest people. And I was writing about that in 2004.
Right.
I wrote things called The Circle of Greed, a whole series of them.
Yeah.
And so nothing's changed. It's just gotten worse. So to that person's question, the only real answer goes back to find the politicians, pull back the curtain, see who the greedy assholes are behind them, and go after all of them. I don't know the players yet. I don't know them all, but we had the Dirty Dozen. Hell, y'all have at least thousands upon thousands of people. So you have power in that, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So to him, we're working on it. We're trying to make it better. So
I got to call out these naughty people. I have a list. I've received information over the last year of, I'm not going to say it now, but there's certain names that are out there floating around that, oh, well, they're behind it, or they're behind it, or this.
Yeah.
You know, we can't say it because we don't know it, so we can't accuse it, but come on.
Yeah.
You know, and then Dave Wanger is like a great interview. He's going to so be in rabbit hole because he's got the dirt on how it's really happening on the day-to-day play. He told me, you know, he's like, people aren't going to want to say this, Kristina, but like, this is what's going on. It's like the click of the button. Remember we opened the movie, Mark, the click of the button, you know.
Yep.
It's just too easy. And there's always going to be like this person who robs the bank, or, you know, there's those types of people in general in life. So you can't just think, oh, we're just going to live in a perfect world. We're not. This is just wildly out of control. I mean, I don't even have like any like other thing to say. I mean, I'm just going through my own life and my own stuff, you know, and like we all are.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, my mom died in my arms 4 years ago, literally from cancer. That kind of was a wake up.
Yeah.
So here we are. And I just don't want, that's why I'm always kind of like, I really shoot from the hip on this stuff, because I don't want anyone thinking I'm something I'm not. I have no game in this other than I'm with all of you to support all of you equally, collectively, globally, whatever we all have to do. I am just so in it on a grassroots level. It's not like it was when I made the Wall Street Conspiracy. You know, we don't have that underneath us. I mean, we have the wind beneath our wings, but we're just flying here, right, Mark? We're flying. You know, I mean,
sure. You know, and the reality of it is, like the book I wrote years ago is about a company called CMKM Diamonds, the little micro cap. By micro cap, I mean at some point its stock was 1/100th of a penny eventually. That event ended up, it turns out they issued 780 billion shares, if I have my numbers right.
Yep.
I think
800 billion.
800 billion, yeah. And 803 actually eventually. And I wrote a book about it, and everybody thought it was just naked short selling, but it turned out it wasn't just. It was also naked short selling on top of that. So I made a lot of enemies from shareholders who were not happy because I didn't give them the truth they wanted, but that's because that truth didn't exist. And the truth in that case, the truth was the company was a scam. Damn shame, but the company was a scam. There were no diamonds, there was no gold, there was none of that shit. So the reality of it is, this time around, it's gonna be the same process where my job is to just wade through everything, and there's a lot of it, and y'all know there's a lot of it, and then as best we can tell the truth in the film. And I hope that we dig up some really ugly stuff about the people who are causing the harm to so many millions of people in the world, and I will happily put it on the screen for everyone to see and let that person bear the consequences of their horrible fucking actions. And that's the reality of it. So,
I'm with you, Mark. I'm with you.
Yeah.
We're reason we're just like, what, if we're the balls to the wallers, fine.
Yeah.
We have no fear as long as it's the truth.
I'm too old. I'm too old to have fear.
I have no fear. I'm like,
No, but the same thing. I have kids and grandkids, and like everyone, we want to just see it fixed. And all we really want to do is, and again, I know you said you wanted to mention and have Kristina give an email where people can send their stories. I can't tell you that we can use. There's going to be too many of them, and we know there is. But everything that we read helps shape the big story. Because we have to have all the information, even if it hurts my head at the end of the day, which it does a lot of times. You have to have all the information, and then all we can do is do our best, and hopefully, in the diversity of tactics I talked about earlier, I hope that the second film is like the first film in that it gives you another tool in your arsenal to fight the fraud. And I also will tell you that we will do our best to present a roadmap and some solutions in there too. So that's it.
Nice. Well, where are you going to release the film? Do you know?
Nope.
Not yet.
It obviously will be streaming, and a lot of times you make the film or you get it close to finish, and then you start talking to the people that might be able to best distribute it. The difference we have this time, and again, you don't have to be that old to know this, but 15 years ago, Netflix was barely coming out of the gate. And now there are at least a dozen really solid streaming services that can get you international exposure on a film. And we didn't have that last time. So I'm pretty excited about that. And for the film I'm wrapping up now, I'm super hyped that we have options, and that's really a great thing. I mean, the first Wall Street Conspiracy is getting more play now than it did then.
Yeah.
But because of that, there's just more options. That's the beauty. That's yet another reason that I have some hope, that when we get the word out, it can go out there fast. And I haven't even figured out quite how it works. I'm over there on Twitter going, oh, there's a lot of notifications there. I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing on Twitter. I can organize all day on Facebook, but guess I better learn this,
Yeah.
But I'm just amazed that it works so well. So to me, that'll be it. Find a good streaming service, and Kristina can tell you more about that.
What I had to do the last year, you could pick your number. You say, I want to have it sale for $2 or $4 or $10, or you just do it and they take a 10% cut, but it's available to the people. So we could just do that. It's easy. This doesn't have to be complicated. That's my point right now, is that what I figured out in my little world that I was navigating. This does not have to be complex or, how are we going to get it out there? We can just blow this thing out. But I think it's most important is it's the collective communication of everybody who cares.
Amen.
On a global scale. That's what's going to help us to just put the content on the platform. Like, we're just creatively doing it. And, we all have jobs. Okay. We don't just sit around doing this all day. No one does. We're all doing other things, and want to make this happen. So I think, like Mark said, the most important is send us your content, because even if your content can't make it in Rabbit Hole, your voice will make it to Dave Lauer with We the Investor, that goes straight to the SEC, because we're collaborative now. We've connected ourselves with everyone who's doing something. So that's our hope for Rabbit Hole. Yeah. And it's been really cool. honestly, for the last couple of weeks since we launched for real, we're getting like great real stories. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
we are just here to do, I don't know. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, Mark. It's hard to be the people that made a movie that had such impact. And then also the people on the other side of it who are back in it again for nothing other than help. We just want to
Yes.
help. I'm speaking, I just want to help.
Yeah.
No agenda here other than to help connect who I know to who is doing good things. Just help everyone resolve this.
Mhm.
Like 23 years. I mean, I'm no young chicken here, 23 years later, I met Darren. 23 years, Mark.
Wow.
Come on.
I know.
This is the one thing I didn't want to bring up SEC, but when I was there, they were chanting, when are you going to do your job? Do you
Yeah.
remember when?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That was Darren's first signs. SEC, do your job. And then he would do that voice where he's imitating the brokers. Get out of here with you. What are you doing up here? This is But yeah, Darren was out there in the 90s.
And
So
then right in the
over 20 years ago, he was out there, 25 to 30 years ago, he was out there by himself with a sign getting arrested because everybody thought he was, the crazy voice in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And maybe he was, but guess what? Most times the crazy voice in the wilderness is right. They're not saying that for no, there's a reason they're chanting that single thing over, that single truth over and over and over again. It's because maybe that's what made them crazy, knowing that truth.
And then Rod Young, remember Rod Young with Eagletech, with the chairman.
Lost it all.
He's like, when are you going to do your job? Right there, point blank in front of the SEC on the stage. And we have that in the Wall Street Conspiracy. And then they were outside, not me, the people that gathered, saying the exact same thing. And I was just like, wow, this is like mind boggling.
It's cool and sad at the same time.
Really sad.
Yeah.
This is really cool. But also, wait, we still have to chant the same goddamn thing again, like this many decades later,
Yes. It was, and what's the difference? Oh, we have social media and a box truck? No.
Yeah.
It's just, it was like wild. I was so happy to be there, but I was like, wow. We got to really rabbit hole
again.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what's next with you?
Well, the last question is there anything we didn't cover that you'd like to add?
I mean, I'm good. I'm good. I mean, I as an organizer, my mantra is always fucking organize and I'm willing to help on that. And I feel like many of you probably know more about the current state of the topic even than I do, even though I researched it back in the day. I feel like I'm like doing the Y2K thing where they're like, bring in those old programmers that know how to do, they can fix these two numbers we forgot to put on computers. I feel like that guy. So I think you guys know a lot more than me in some ways. So educate me. But I do know a lot about organizing. And as a journalist and a writer and a filmmaker, I'm never separated from my organizing activist roots. So that would be my advice. Just organize, find your targets and take them down one at a time. And again, metaphorically and with emails and your voices and
Comments to the SEC.
Exactly. And a united front. Just please go with that united front, because our individual variations on the theme don't matter. What matters is that this is a singular problem that we can all attack together, and that's going to fix almost everyone's individual issues in this. So that's it.
So I added the suggestions that we got from the sub to the document that I sent you. But for anyone who missed the question thread, would you be interested in receiving tips from the community? And if so, do you have an email you'd like to share?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, that's great. We want anything you guys have to say, please keep it coming. So wscrabbithole@gmail.com.
Okay. And so I'll put that in the post too, so people can see. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
And whatever, help you all out. I mean, we're just in it, right? That's it.
Absolutely. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.